What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Fantasy Football Card Quest. We've got a special guest in the house tonight. I'm so excited to introduce this man right here to you guys, sitting in the cornfield, straight from Nebraska, because he is pretty much new to the hobby for the last 9 months, but he has gone hot and heavy back into the hobby from being in it a little bit in the 90s, a little bit in the 2000s. He's also 1-0 on selling GOAT rookie cards. He's 1-0 on grading through SGC. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. He's also professionally written for Bleacher Report, SB Nation, Athlon Sports, and he's got over 18 years of sports journalism experience. So I want to talk to him about prospecting future athletes. As we know, FOMO drives the football card market. So that's something I'm always very interested in. But you can find this man right here, Brandon, at 402 Collectibles on Twitter. What's up, Brandon?
What is up, Andy? Great to be here. Great to be part of the quest. Something that I've been following, like you said, getting back into the hobby this year. Was fortunate enough to find your channel. Love all the content. Binged it, absolutely. And been looking forward to this all week.
So I see you're sitting in a cornfield, but that's virtual background, right?
No. This is what happens in Nebraska. We all live in cornfields. We all have outhouses. No such thing as indoor plumbing. I have a horse around here somewhere. No, I just felt since everybody, said, "Oh, the dude's from Nebraska," this is probably what they anticipate. So I felt this would probably be the way to go.
Hey, but that's what raises the best defensive players in the NFL, right? Levante David, Ndamukong Suh.
I think that's also Nick Saban and some of those folks. But yes, plenty of defensive players, plenty of former black shirts in the NFL across the years. Right now, I think Levante and Ndamukong are doing the best job of that. Also, a little bit of Will Compton in Las Vegas. But yeah, the Huskers are mingling and kind of around a little bit in the NFL. Hasn't been a lot of NFL talent really coming through Lincoln as of late, but might see a little bit here in the upcoming draft.
So you were a little bit in the hobby in the 90s, a little bit in the hobby into 2000s, but you got back in hot and heavy about 9 months ago. What was the first thing you did when you got back in? Like, how did you find out about it? And then what was the first thing you did?
That's a great question. So just kind of from where I got back when I was a kid, we're about the same age. And my uncle actually gave me a box of cards. I really wasn't into sports, so I had no idea who these people were. And there was football, basketball, baseball, hockey even. I had to ask a friend of mine, are these guys any good? But I did enjoy it. And then I kind of got phased out. But then back in the 2000s, I started collecting, a few more cards, ripping packs, got on eBay, started getting former Huskers, which is, primarily who I PC, regardless of sports, so football, basketball, baseball, etc. But then earlier this year, obviously there was the boom, and excuse me, not earlier this year, back in 2020, there was the boom, and things kind of continued on. And I heard about people getting in fights at Target and all this kind of stuff. I was like, wow, this stuff is really popping off. So I came back in, and before all that kind of went down, and Target went primarily online only, I was actually going up with my son like on Fridays, and we would get something. We'd get like whatever the limit was at the time, and we got back into it. I learned about just everything, because where we started when we were kids and where we are now, two completely different worlds. I come back and thinking, oh, hey, cool cards, yeah, sports cards, and then I'm learning about parallels and different kinds of autographs, and yeah, this card in 2012 is good, but then in 2015, not so, it's not viewed as so short prints, super short prints. I mean, it is so complex now that I'm still several months later learning so much. Not just, from you and I listen to probably 5 podcasts weekly, and some of those with multiple episodes. So I have been able to take in a lot of information.
So I have to elaborate. I want you to elaborate on your Brady rookie card selling experience, because something we were talking about, before the show is from the time you got in, time you found this Brady rookie card and you sold it, you actually learned so much from since then that you've actually sold much more modern cards of much more speculative players for more money in comparison. I want you to elaborate on that a little bit.
Sure. So when I was looking around, I was looking through my cards. I did find an Aaron Rodgers, and that was a Topps Chrome. And then I found the Brady. I know you're familiar with it. It looks like he is in a Michigan practice shell and jersey. Like, yes, he's been drafted, but we can't show him in a Michigan jersey. So we'll just kind of vaguely over here. No, that one I found, and it was in good condition. So I'm like, hey, people are buying sports cards. People are buying sports cards for a lot of money. Tom Brady is Tom Brady. That's all I really needed to know there. So that I had that, and then I kind of knew a little bit about grading, like as a concept. So I thought I'd go to a local card shop and see if the owner could kind of give me an idea, because I had no idea about what a grading company would look for or any of that. So I wanted to see if it was even worth my while. And experience wasn't that great. And overall, he kind of gave me the idea that the card wasn't like worth much. So my perception of the card itself was like, yeah, it's a Tom Brady card, but I had no idea about how the hobby had evolved and just what the actual worth of the card could be. So I went on, and this is kind of where I started learning how to comp. I had looked at like sold prices for forever and a day, something that you do, something that people around the hobby do consistently when they want to flip or anything of that nature. And there were similar cards that were going for, at the time, I want to say $400, $500, $600. But those sales were a little while back. I didn't want to be greedy about it. I just wanted to pay some bills and whatnot. So I put it up for, it was raw, $300 OBO. And I remember walking away about 15 minutes after listing. I got an offer of 150. About 3 to 5 minutes after that, I got an offer for 200. About 3 to 5 minutes after that, somebody bought it for 300. Just bang. And of course, you have that regret at the time. You're like, "Oh wow, I should have put it up for that 500-600." But hey, not going to complain, right? Can only hindsight's 2020. But then, like you were saying, we go more modern. I was ripping some Select with my son. He absolutely adores it, and he has the touch. He pulled a Justin Herbert white die cut rookie out of NFL Select. And we went on to then sell that card for, I think I actually sold it for 400. But then after fees and shipping, got about 330. So cleared 330. So again, that's with probably about 3-4 months experience and learning a bit more and learning what sets and what player. Well, Justin Herbert, I had followed him in Oregon, so I knew Justin Herbert. But when you are looking at actual material, actual cards, and how people in the hobby perceive those, and there are so many different types of people in the hobby, people who are strictly collectors, strictly dealers, strictly investors. You've got people who I would have to say I claim all three of those titles, and I know I'm not the only one. So with that mindset, I was able to go with, I could be a little bit better informed on that. And then now it's just saying going 1-0 on grading again. I got to give my son props on this. We pulled a Justin Herbert Prism Black Silver, and it looked pretty good. We sent it in, got a Gem Mint 10. It's currently up on the eBay page. That is for sale at this point in time. But no, it's been great. Been a wonderful experience all the way around. I got to tell you, I mean, when it came to the grading, SGC, all the props to them. They basically under-promise, over-deliver. They recently had to extend their times to 45 to 60 days. I sent this thing in October. I got it back in 30 days. They were expecting, they said expect 45 to 60, got it back in 30 even. Just all the way across the board. Love the experience. And throw a hot take out there real early. I'll be dead honest. I do not like PSA slabs. These things look like dot matrix printer to me, and I really think the only reason that they're sticking out so much is they are known as the gold standard. I think if you take somebody who's brand new in the hobby, kind of like I was several months ago, if you swap even the way, like even if you swap like an SGC and PSA, I think just a number of brand new people would say, wow, these SGC ones actually look a little more up to date. Now, I'm not saying that PSA, the look doesn't have its place by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not saying that. But when it comes to PSA, I understand they've been around. They have the cachet. They have the stroke, so to speak. So yeah, it is going to bring in that extra couple $100. But we've been seeing sales now start to creep up there to where I think SGC is getting a reputation as hard graders. But I think there's a sense of pride there when you get like that Gen Mint 10 from SGC. So we're starting to see those sales creep up, and just their customer service. You can't deny that they do one heck of a job in terms of getting stuff turned around, especially for the price point. You don't have to spend $100 and then wait for 6 months with supply chain issues or anything like that. You don't have to necessarily wait perhaps longer than that. So a lot to that say I don't necessarily prefer PSA, excuse me.
And not to mention, SGC offers that little photo service. They take a little picture of your card and they'll put it in your collection on their website. Professional pictures. You could just grab that, download that JPEG, and put it right on eBay as your listing. It's perfect lighting, everything.
That was one thing I really enjoyed about it, because I was hoping to see what the grade was before it got to me. And that was the way I actually found out about the grade, was that picture. And it is a gorgeous professional picture. You get the reflection on there, you get the refractor on there. And that is what went up on eBay, in addition to the actual photo. So, I'm not just taking a screenshot, but that was how I found out about the grade. The whole process was really cool. And then to have that be the end result and actually get in my hands, it was really cool. Very cool.
So yeah, that is really cool, man. So you're 1-0 on grading. Get the SGC 10. You were fortunate enough not to get succumbed to doing tons and tons of breaks, which I had the same bad luck. It was like, in a way, I'm very happy that it happened, that I burned $150 and got absolutely nothing, because I'll never do another break again. Kind of learned that lesson the hard way. But it was good, because I think you could easily get sucked into those if you start, winning some nice cards.
Breaks were actually kind of how I got reintroduced as well. As a person that I had known for a while, had a break group, and he and his friends primarily worked with baseball. I am a Kansas City Royals fan, so I got in usually pretty cheap. But it was easy to get sucked in, right? I mean, there's this talk, you can get this great hit, you can get an autograph, you can get these fantastic prospects. And it's really this larger than life idea, especially when you have social media and you see not only people ripping fantastic cards and getting those big hits, but then you've got breakers showing all of the great hits that they get. And there's this misconception, I think, that, there's just this, you're going to hit this fantastic card. You're going to be able to pull this $300 card that you can slap on eBay right away and sell. And I think that really does a lot of people disservice, especially folks who are newer, who are getting back into the hobby now. I know there's still tons of people that are just now getting back into it, as it becomes even more affordable. And I think you go out there and you see, people pulling these, whether it's the zebras out of Select or silvers or these fantastic autographs and everything like that, thinking that's going to be them. All I have to do is just, have the touch that one particular day. And then you've got somebody who's buying, 200, 300, $350 in product if they can get their hands on it, and ripping thinking they're going to get that. And they might get an autograph or two, but it might not be somebody who's set up to excel in the immediate. As a matter of fact, my first auto that I pulled was a tight end, and he was in his Stanford uniform. So that's honestly something that a lot of collectors too, they don't appreciate the college uniform. I'm not one of those. I actually do appreciate the college uniforms. But yeah, there's this misconception out there that you can just go rip fire every single time. And then you have a lot of people sinking a lot of money into it. And I think it does them a disservice. And I think it does the hobbyists a disservice, honestly.
Yeah, for sure. I want to touch on the college uniform cards in just a second. I want to give a quick shout out here to Michael Ham, a fishing and sports card hobbyist, fellow tampon here with me, and another awesome content creator. And then also shout out to Raven, my co-host over there on the Comp Kings, man. What's good tonight, guys? I'm trying, Brandon. I'm really trying to squeak out an advancement in my fantasy football playoffs tonight with this Eagles and Washington game. So,
well, not that long ago, I saw Jalen Hurts did rush in there for a score. So, fingers crossed for you, man. We both put in a little bit. He
got another touchdown as well.
That's what I'm saying.
He got his second touchdown as well. So I'm only down by like 8 points right now, and I've got Hurts and Gibson. I think it's you. You must be bringing the good karma, Brandon.
I give all credit to my son. Seriously, when I'm ripping myself, it's not very much, but he comes around and I start ripping the Justin Herbert and the mac and cheese and just about. I told you it was about a couple weeks ago. I happen to have some products, and a buddy of mine wanted me to basically do like a personal break for him, and we ended up with. It was like a basic Mac Jones relic, and then it was a Justin Herbert relic, and then a Christian McCaffrey kaboom. So all credit goes to him.
Wow, man, that is incredible. You've got to get him around more. Anytime, anytime you're ripping cards, he's got to be there. He's like, I'm not ripping cards unless the son's here.
No, I've learned my lesson.
So 9 months into the hobby, fast forward today, what would you say are your three biggest or the biggest learning lessons that you had to overcome, that you had to learn? How do you think people can, just like help brand new people getting in, accelerate their learning curve? Because
sure.
I think right now we're starting to see an uptick again. The slow period, and that's due to a lot of factors. You've got tons of live sports on between professional, college, NBA, NHL, MLB, and so MLB is kind of off season right now, but we're getting to the point where NFL playoffs are coming up. People are getting some money in their pockets from Christmas, so you potentially have some new collectors, investors that are now done with their other sports endeavors and stuff, and they're looking to get into football cards. What would you say to these guys?
Well, first I want to acknowledge Raven there in the chat again, said pull the Lamar Jackson with his son. They're definitely good luck. And also good to see you as well, Michael. So as far as lessons getting back in, I'll kind of reiterate myself. If you get product, don't expect to be ripping the biggest thing. If you get product, just enjoy the rip itself. If you get something great, but don't be going into it expecting to get these fantastic hits, especially if you've been on social media and you see people ripping this particular product, whether it's like Absolute, and it seems like everybody and their brother and their sister is is pulling a kaboom. Chances are, even if we're gonna get a little controversial. If you do weigh them, just because you're hitting the weights that are going around Facebook or Twitter or anything, that does not mean you are going to pull a kaboom. So if you get product, by all means, enjoy it. Rip the fat packs, rip the blasters. If you can get your hands on it, rip a mega. But do not go into those retail products expecting the huge hits. They do happen, but not at the rate that's being portrayed on social media. The second thing I would say is it's kind of the same deal with breaks. When it comes to breaks, again, they are very entertaining, but they lend themselves well to people who perhaps have a little bit more disposable income. I'm kind of like Raven in that I really have to set a budget and stick to it, and that does not lend itself well to the world of breaks. When I'm getting in a break, it's typically one where I mean, again, you have to go in a break being okay with losing that money, as really whether you're ripping or you're being in a break, it's essentially gambling. You don't know what's going to come out of that pack. You don't know what that person is going to pull. And in some cases with breakers, I hate it, but there are still unethical people out there. So it's part of humanity. Ergo, it's part of the hobby. There are people who weigh those packs, who go through them ahead of time, who will carny it up and happily take your money. So if you're going to be in a break, you want to find somebody that you can trust, somebody that is vouched for, somebody that is legitimate. I cannot overemphasize that. Breaks are fun, but you do need to do one in a community or with a breaker that you can trust and that is reputable. Do your due diligence when it comes to breakers. Third, well, you guys, Carter and you talked about it a little bit earlier, and Carter and I know each other going back a few years. When it comes to grading, I think kind of an overemphasis is put on grading. When I listen to a lot of the podcasts that I do, their point of reference is often, for example, a PSA 10. When they're looking for pricing, that's kind of their guide. And I think, again, that puts an emphasis on, okay, well, if your card is going to be worth anything, it has to be sent into SGC or BGS or PSA or whatever. And that's not the truth. To kind of echo what Carter was saying earlier in the podcast, earlier in today on December the 24th, the year of our Lord 2021, like, when it comes to grading, my advice would be this for somebody that's coming in. If there is a card that you know will bump by several hundreds of dollars, you have gotten an opinion from maybe somebody who's graded a number of cards, multiple people, as I was fortunate enough to have with the Justin Herbert. And it is a card that will get that extra notch and net you some pretty significant income. By all means, if you have a personal collection card that you want to send in, I'm looking for just the right Levante David rookie auto. If I want to have that sent in just kind of dressed up a little nice, and it looks like a 9 or a 10 or whatever, it doesn't even need to be a 10 by any stretch, but I just wanted to have that nice tuxedo look of an SGC. Yeah, sure. Especially at the price point for SGC right now, $30 a card. You can't beat that, especially in their turnaround time. But if you're out looking for, for example, a quick flip with a Mac Jones, unless you sink that $200 into Express with PSA and you're already $200 in the hole there, you're hoping to get that back in time for the hype to still be there, for the FOMO to still be there, and you may end up losing a great deal of money just trying to get that seal of approval from BSA or SGC or whomever. There is kind of a misconception going around, I think, and I put this out there for you and Carter, actually a few people to talk about. There is a misconception that base is dead. And I think the most recent Mac Jones rated rookie proved that wrong with emphatic gusto, that base is not necessarily dead. I think that we may have gotten a little spoiled as sellers with the boom, and now we're starting to see that settle a little bit. So you're not necessarily going to get 10 times your initial investment. You can still make some decent money on flips with base, as Raven knows, and he does so on a budget. As you know, going on eBay, get some solid stuff. But just to kind of run down those all again, ripping and breaking, more or less, look at it as gambling. Don't spend money you're not willing to lose. If you get something, great. And two, if you're just happy getting whatever and adding to your collection with whatever it might be, great. Have fun. But when it comes to ripping, don't be expecting the big hits all the time, unless you're looking at like a hobby box. But then you're getting into some pretty high price points, especially once you start getting the high end stuff. But beyond that, I would also say too, if I had to sneak a fourth in there as a major one, collect what you want. Don't let anybody dictate what you should and should not be collecting. If you want to collect nothing but Justin Herbert base cards. You do you. If you want to collect some special defensive player from Eastern Michigan that you knew growing up and he got a scholarship and you watched him bust his butt and get a scholarship and now he's in the NFL, you do you. Absolutely. I collect former Nebraska players of varying successes. It's the connection that I made during their college years, in some cases, me personally, with recruits, former recruits. That's where I'm at. So just because I'm looking for like a Tyronn Lue rookie from his days, even in a collegiate uniform, that's not a card that the hobby in general looks at as worth much. But to me, there's a lot of sentimental value behind that. And if that's your thing, go nuts. The hobby does not dictate what you should collect. You dictate that.
No doubt, man. You should dictate that. Don't get caught up in whatever the latest hype or fad is. Speaking of which, you're a big defensive player guy, which is what's fascinating, man. You've written for all of these prominent sports journalism establishments, and you are a big proponent of defenses win championships. You love to collect. And do you invest in defensive players?
I would say that when it comes to defensive players, mostly what I do is collect. And Ndamukong Suh and Levante David are my tops when it comes to that. But when it comes to an investment and flipping scenario, you know as well as I do, everybody out there who's been in the hobby for a hot minute, it's a quarterback-driven hobby. Maybe I don't necessarily think it should be that way, and I think we're starting to see some markets turn to see guys like, for example, a Jonathan Taylor, or a Justin Jefferson start to get their due. But as it is, and I guess as it has been for a minute now, just kind of doing my research, it is very quarterback driven. And that's just kind of how it is right now. That may change here a little bit. But if you're going for the quick flip, you pop in on all the hot rookie quarterbacks. You hope one catches fire like Mac Jones, and hope that they're rookie of the year at the end of it, whether it's Justin Herbert, possibly Mac Jones, or if you have the opportunity to see somebody in college like a Jonathan Taylor. Man, I watched him run all over Nebraska defenses. He was a guy that I knew by the time that he was done, he would probably do at least pretty well in the league, probably at least hit that 3 to 5 year career point, if not a little bit longer, but he had all the tools. Now, when it comes to investing in defensive players, that's not saying never do it, leading us into another guy that, quite frankly, for him, college was a formality. It was practice. Micah Parsons was actually in Lincoln being recruited by Nebraska. I got to see this guy, this young man, up live, close and in living color. Dude was an absolute athletic freak back then. And when he signed with Penn State, I knew he'd do well in that defense, in that culture, and I knew it was just a matter of time. This was a kid that was walking in the door NFL ready. The guy before him that I saw personally up close was Ndamukong Suh. He was not as polished as early, but after a couple of years, he was just going out there wrecking people left and right. Micah was the same way. You've now got a guy in Micah Parsons that's more than likely going to be, if not just defensive rookie of the year, I mean, easily defensive rookie of the year, possibly defensive player of the year. So investing in defensive players, not the worst thing you can do, but I think you've got to do your research with that. So if you're going to invest, definitely quarterbacks, and then I would say skill players with regards to running backs and wide receivers. But when it comes to running backs and wide receivers, you've got to be content sitting for a couple of years. But yeah, when it comes to defense, Micah is a guy that I don't necessarily know that I would buy right now unless you can just get an absolute steal, because there are some opportunities to get in on quite literally absolute cards that are color variations for only a few bucks. Like quite literally, Raven again, he snagged a blue press proof for I think $3. Flip that into, I want to say something like 25, 30. So right now might not be the time to buy on Micah, as his stuff is and will continue to be, I believe, going through the roof. But here in the off season, if you have the opportunity, if you have even have the opportunity now to come across some that may just the person in question may not know what they have, maybe any early in the morning on a Wednesday, whatever you like there. Defensive players, they are fewer and far between, but they can be found. You just got to do your research, and it helps when you watch them in college, admittedly.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it seems like you're the perfect guy to have that kind of intel. You guys like you and Carter that are prospecting these guys, studying them at the college level. So you're 100% prepared, and it's you can definitely take advantage of these guys in their because we see such a big gap between when their base Donruss rated rookie comes out at the beginning of the season and then these next premium sets. Like we're looking at an absolute right here, but this has got an autograph on it and a serial number. But to your point, the color match base Donruss rated rookie press proof blues were a market inefficiency that Raven was able to capitalize on. Pick those up for just a couple dollars, and the demand went through the roof on Micah because he's the perfect storm. And regardless of whether or not he's a defensive or offensive player, he's got the youth. We haven't seen his ceiling on NFL field yet. Big market team, they're winning. It's just a perfect storm to drive an incredible amount of FOMO or fear of missing out. We saw that with Trayvon Diggs too, his teammate.
Absolutely. And that's a thing where, too, you're going to see some opportunity, I think, at this upcoming draft class to get in on some quality defensive players. Now, again, you've got to be careful because defensive players, they are not necessarily the sexiest, but you might have, again, a guy that busts out as a defensive rookie of the year. Not saying there's a Micah Parsons in there, but there are a couple of edge players. Aiden Hutchinson out of Michigan's a guy that may very well go number one overall. There's also a young man from Oregon. This may be a defensive-heavy first round and draft in general. Andy and I, we were talking about, hey, if you were going to take a quarterback, who would you take? And outside of Pitt's starter, I don't really know anybody off the top of my head who I would invest in as a GM. Now, again, I'm not an NFL GM by any stretch of the imagination, but there's nobody that I, even as a fan, would say, oh, yeah, I personally am a Packers fan. And obviously there's a lot of controversy there with regards to Aaron Rodgers and how he feels about the organization. But there's not anybody that I would look at and say, okay, absolutely have to draft him either as, to be groomed by Aaron or just to step in should he take his talents to whether it's, Denver, Las Vegas, whatever you like. So not really anybody that I'm seeing in this class that's quarterback specific. This may be a great opportunity for folks who are out there who are curious about investing in defensive players to do a little bit of work and see if some of these edge rushers, some of the linebackers may not be worth getting in on. I wouldn't put quarterback money down on them, but definitely take the opportunity to see what's coming out in this class and maybe invest a little bit.
I like it. What are the key metrics that we should be looking at from either I guess most of our fantasy football leagues we're picking a defense as a whole, but in terms of like the specific athlete, what are some core metrics or advanced analytics that we should be looking at that correlate, you think, well into the NFL in terms of finding a good defensive player?
Honestly, I can keep it really, really simple for you. It is the absolute freaks, the guys with the amazing stats. If they pop, there's a reason for that. There are guys that are like Micah, like Ndamukong, they are NFL ready to go, whether it's early or whether it's at the end of their eligibility. The guys that are popping off, the guys that are winning all the awards, if you see a guy that is sticking out on the stat sheet. So, for example, if you've got a defensive lineman that is high on the national sack chart, high on the tackle for loss chart, maybe has an interception. I mean, just a guy that keeps showing up like that, That's a guy. It's not very complicated. It's just the guys who were standing out. If you look back to Micah Parsons' time, again, he was standing out as just again a linebacker that wasn't necessarily always in position to do a thing, wasn't necessarily set to do a thing, but he made highlights happen. So if you see a defender that the highlights are all over there. Aiden Hutchinson, a name that I've already brought up from the University of Michigan, he was at the Heisman ceremony. Defensive players do not traditionally get that kind of spotlight. I would argue, and this is going to sound real biased coming from the guy standing in the cornfield, I would argue that Ndamukong Suh got robbed of the Heisman Trophy. I believe he placed third that year. If you go back and look at his stats, he was outdoing entire defenses in terms of tackles for loss and sacks. Absolute nightmare. So when you see somebody like that, you say, oh my gosh, these are video game numbers. I know it seems like amazingly obvious and like, oh, this is too good to be true. When it comes to defensive players, yeah, anything can happen. They might get injured. There may be a cultural aspect. There may be something in their personal lives. But if we're looking from just a raw metrics, who do I go after as a defender? If somebody's sticking out there with video game numbers, it may seem too easy, but honestly, that's where I see a lot of the correlation.
Yeah, it makes sense. So in terms of priority, or like in terms of propensity to break out with their rookie card value, would you say that it would be the edge rushers first, and then linebackers, and then corners or safeties? How would you kind of rank those guys in terms of, like, if everything else were equal, the team scenario and their age and everything, which one has like a little bit higher ceiling, do you think? Like,
That's a
I
very
guess
good
it would
question.
be more like fan appeal.
Yeah, and that's a great question. So, okay, what do fans like seeing most of on defense? You could argue sacks, you could argue tackles for loss. If we're talking the quarterback of the defense, when it comes to the hobby, I would argue those are cornerbacks. Cornerbacks are often in position to go up against your Jamar Chases, your Justin Jeffersons, your hot rookie wide receivers. Because if you're not investing in quarterbacks and you're not necessarily investing in running backs, but you're interested in those wide receivers, guess who's going to be going up against them? So when those cornerbacks make plays on the guys that you already have money invested in, or guys that other people have a lot of money invested in, suddenly people are like, oh my gosh, these guys can go up against the best of the best. I need to sink money in him. I can totally see that being sort of, again, the quarterback of the defense with regards to the hobby. But if you are looking for potentially longer plays, I don't necessarily know that I would have gone with J.J. Watt coming right out. But we obviously know the story there. I got to see him again up close and personal. He had all of the athletic dynamics, but was he a guy that I would necessarily jump in on right away? I don't know about that. But I think you guys are going to be seeing a lot of highlights heading into the combine and then heading into the draft of some defensive players. You don't necessarily need to listen to all of the analysts or the talking heads. You don't need to listen to everybody on the NFL Network or anything like that. If the guy looks solid, if he looks like an NFL player when it comes to defenses, probably is. If you would have looked at Micah Parsons' film, you would have seen a guy where you say, oh my gosh, this guy is tremendously talented. He looks like he could make a dent. That's probably because he will. Again, it also depends on the type of defense that they're going into. So you definitely want to do some work to see, okay, is the defense that this guy's familiar with, is it one that's similar to the one that he's going into? If he is, let's say, for example, if it is a cornerback that has a ton of interceptions, okay, is he going into a defense that has lent itself well to that, a program that is known for defense? So, for example, if the Baltimore Ravens, for example, stepped up and picked the best cornerback in the draft, I might be tempted to put down a little bit of money there. So if there is like a defensive coordinator or an organization that is known for their defensive acumen, or a coach, defensive coordinator, like I say, that has that mindset, definitely something to watch. So when you're able to find that athletic profile of just the absolute freak, and they are teamed up with an organization, not even necessarily that big market, it helps in terms of Micah Parsons, as you said, perfect storm. But if it's an organization that is known for their defense, big market doesn't hurt. That definitely probably be the way to go, or at least if you're interested in dipping a toe there. But yeah, have a look, see, and yeah, Raven makes a great point here in the chat. You want the guy they send off the bus first. No lie, that is accurate.
So you may have mentioned it earlier, but I want you to give me just one guy that you're looking out for in 2022.
Again, okay, are we talking about defense or are we talking about overall?
A defense.
Defense,
like
okay.
One defensive guy.
One defensive guy. It really depends on where he goes. But I have seen, and I keep saying his name, but there's a reason for that. Aiden Hutchinson, his dad, Chris, actually also played for Michigan, also won a Big Ten championship. But again, when you have a defensive player going to the Heisman Trophy ceremony, now I will step aside for a moment and say the guy who won the Heisman Trophy and who may very well do it again, being only the second back-to-back Heisman Trophy winner, Bryce Young, quarterback for Alabama. When he comes out, you're going to want to get all over Bryce Young, but he's still got a minute. So with regards to defense, or maybe even in general in this upcoming draft, Aiden Hutchinson, the guy just has the numbers, the freakish appeal. He is going to be in the college football playoffs. So if you do not watch a lot of college ball, he will be under the biggest of spotlights going up against some of the best athletes that college football has to offer. So I definitely do recommend tuning in. Michigan in the big spotlight, you'll be able to see Aiden. You'll be able to see why he has just absolutely wrecked offenses in the Big Ten, and see what he can do against some quality NFL level prospects.
Yeah, I'm looking at this guy right here. He looks like he's built like TJ Watt.
I would say that is a quality comparison. I remember both JJ and TJ from Wisconsin. So you've got another Big Ten quality defender. And like you mentioned, I've seen a couple in my own backyard with Levante David and Dominican Sue. The Big Ten puts out, I think, two things on a regular basis. Quality offensive linemen and quality defenders, usually a couple every year. You can usually count on that. Maybe the occasional Wisconsin running back, whether you like Jonathan Taylor or I know there's a couple that I'm forgetting off the top of my head, but John Taylor is out in the open right now so much that he's kind of front in my head. But yeah, Aiden is definitely a guy to watch. I think you guys will enjoy him if you watch him. He's very fun to watch.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Right on. Yeah, it's so challenging to get in on the current draft class of players because of the available products there is for them. I mean, that's what's so challenging to me, because I know that once these other sets are released, like we're seeing Prism, Mosaic being released right now, pretty soon Prism. I just saw release dates for Contenders in 2021. Then the Optic, the Select, all these sets, these 20 to 30 Panini sets that are released that are going to seriously take a player's available rookie card from when they're drafted to, from a few to over 200. I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
Oh man. Well, my biggest thoughts, I can't wait to get my hands on the product. I mean, it seems like there really hasn't been much lately that I personally have been able to get my hands on. Absolute was here, but personally, my favorite sets are both Prism and Select. That's that's pretty much what, when I came back into the hobby, those were the ones that were hot at the time. So I think that probably has a little something to do with it. Um, but just with everything coming down the line, I'll have to say too, Andy, with your affinity for the rookie ticket autos, I've kind of gotten into contenders a little bit more. Um, and touching in on that briefly with contenders, the one thing that I really like with that, and this can be okay for a hot minute if it's all there is to have of that player, collegiate uniforms. As a guy that watches a
Mm.
lot of college football, to folks who don't, I can see them saying, "Oh, this is an amateur uniform. I want to see the pro unit." And I get that. I totally get that. It is cool seeing the baby picture of the baby's first NFL uniform. I totally get that perspective. But from a guy who watches, let's say, an Aiden Hutchinson, or there's a wide receiver coming out of Nebraska, kind of in the mold of Devontae Smith, Samori Toure. If he happens to come out and gets a rookie out or something like that, seeing them, how kind of I remember them in highlights from college, there's a worth in that. I know I'm not alone. I know it's not the vast majority of the hobby. I know the vast majority of the hobby wants to see them in their NFL uniforms. Totally understandable. But with regards to the upcoming, I mean, we've kind of had, like you said, a little bit of a lull, but then I don't know how much longer those base rated rookie Mac Jones are going to be going for $35, $40, because once we get Mosaic, Optic, Prism, Select. One thing I wanted to ask you about, Andy, and you may have already talked about this. What did you think of? As a matter of fact, I think I know you did. What did you think of the new Prism set? I know you guys went over it a little bit, but I wanted to see if maybe any time passed, if it had grown on you a little bit.
Certainly, because every time I look at the 2020 Prism, I'm now thinking about the 2021 Prism, and honestly, I like the 2021 Prism design a little bit better. I like how they extended that color band on the side, like all the way through, and maybe it helps if I pull up the artist proofs again.
Yeah.
I'd have to give me a second to find them, but they definitely do grow on me. They grow on me every year, since I got in when I was looking at 2019 Prism, and at first I thought those look kind of goofy with the like the half like heart on each side, and then the 2020 Prisms very geometrical. They grow on me. I think they make a good card in Prism, and it certainly is quote unquote like up there with top demand in the hobby. But like you say, collect what you like, and I've personally have gravitated more towards now the rookie ticket auto. That's my little ace in the hole card set right there.
Absolutely. And when I started on it too, I'm like, it is a really sharp, clean look. And the more I see him, the more like, man, whether it's analytics or whatever, and he is at he's in on the ground floor of this stuff. I kind of look at Prism as kind of the dressed up version, and like Select as more of a casual version. There's one thing though I will say, with regards to Prism in the upcoming set, I do dig those manga inserts, like the one with Tom Brady and the Infinity Gauntlet. I thought that was pretty cool. Also the color splashes, the color blasts, I think look pretty cool as well. The first time I actually saw the proofs, I was kind of underwhelmed. But again, the more I see them, and once I actually get to see them up close, we saw a lot of color matching too. So I'm curious to see what that looks like actually live and in front of my face.
Yeah, they're incorporating more and more color matching in base cards, which is very clever. But I think it's a great idea. It's I wish they would cut down the number of parallels. Honestly, the number 50 to 100 type parallels is a bit much to me, in my opinion. What do you think about all the parallels? Would you like to see them scale it back a little bit, or do you feel that it offers a something for everybody?
I'm sure that there are plenty of people. I know there are people who like to collect the rainbow, but for me personally, that is not me. I think when it comes to color, um, with regards to the number of parallels in a set, I think less is more. Regardless of whether you are a sports collector or like a Pokemon or a MetaZoo collector, the same thing transcends it. Everybody's looking for shiny. Any collector wants the shiny stuff. So I think maybe even putting an emphasis on that is the way to go. Though I do understand that while Panini is its own company before they get completely eaten up by fanatics, take advantage of the demand that is now happening with the hobby popping again, and you want to get maybe a little bit more color into the hands of potential customers once they do officially go under the fanatics umbrella. I can understand that, but am I personally going out saying, okay, for example, collecting Levante David, oh, I've got to get the red, oh, I've got to get the blue, I've got to collect the whole rainbow? That's not me. I know there are people out there who enjoy that, and not knocking on that at all. Looking at here, you bring up the snake skin. I need to see this in front of my face, because when I look at that, I just see a bunch of pixels. And I like Justin Fields. I'm with Carter in that I think he's a long-term hold, but I do not know about that parallel, at least as it exists right there in the proof.
Well, yeah, and think about the snakeskin. Is it going to be a super short print card? It's going to be like a case hit, so the values associated with it are going to be astronomical.
Yeah, I do like the color match though, and I think we're going to see. I'm curious to see what we get with it. What do you think about the legend signatures? This was something I was kind of on the fence about.
I think for the right coach, the right player, this could be very interesting. Even though the autograph is on a sticker, if it's authentic, I think this puts an autograph of a Hall of Fame NFL, whether it's a coach or a player. I think this puts it on a nice card, and I think this makes it very compelling. You maybe add some color to it, some interesting text, font. I think this makes this a really cool collection piece, which in turn, makes it a good investment piece if you can get it low enough.
Absolutely. I mean, you definitely if there's a Belichick in there, everybody's going to be gunning for it. I don't necessarily know what kind of a market there will be for it. I'm curious to see how that goes. Obviously, you're gonna get the people who want the rookie patch, who's want to they want to get the prism. I don't know how many people out there are going to be hungry for the Bill Parcells, but again, that's not a market that I am intimately familiar with. Um, that being said, no, and there's something else too I wanted to bring up with you, Andy. Is it just me, getting back into it, or does it kind of seem like we are in an era of the autograph? Like, if you're not handling a card that has an autograph, whether it's sticker or on card, you're not looking at much. I had brought in too, is base dead, man. Is it that anything that doesn't have an autograph or a serial number or a game worn, not just a napkin, but an actual game worn piece of jersey or whatnot? Like, are we in that era where it's that, or like in terms of market share, is it that or terribly sorry you're sitting out?
I don't think it's terribly sorry you're sitting out. However, autographs it definitely hold a lot of value, and they're definitely very hot. I'm a big fan of autographs. I love the on-card autographs, but even with the sticker, it's something that it's almost like uh, the jersey patch cards. The jersey patch cards, I think, would do a lot better if any of the jersey patches were from an actual game or event. But the fact that it's just player worn doesn't really do a whole lot. I think it's important that these autographs come from the player and they kind of symbolize the player in a way. And I do agree with Al. Shout out to Al here that the penmanship goes a long way. Like we were talking about Tyler Huntley's autograph earlier. It's absolutely terrible. It looks like a little kid did it, and it has two lines. And I think that like this Bill Parcells autograph, where I can almost read out it says Bill Parcells, or even the Trevor Lawrence autograph, or the Trey Lance autograph here, these all look incredible. And that's kind of why they put them on the poster for the 2021 Prism. But I think a good autograph goes a long way.
I have terrible penmanship, but when I do use my signature, I at least kind of it looks almost like a doctor's writing prescription, but it still has a little bit of flair. And I also wanted to point out a statement that also is in the chat. We are in an era of slab cards. I don't necessarily disagree with that. A lot, like I said, maybe the vast majority of the podcasts that I listen to, they are always referencing PSA 10s or SGC 10s. They are talking about grading companies doing their things. Yes, raw is brought up, but it seems like the standard right now is when you get that graded card back. And again, I'll loop back around to that the misconception that if it's not graded, it's not worth having. Absolutely not the case. But we are seeing so much put out there that too, with PSA getting backed up and just kind of the backlogs in general, we're starting to see grading companies step up and kind of come out and try to make a name for themselves. And I'm not saying competition's a bad thing, but again, you've got unethical people coming out and say, "Hey, we can smack some plastic on it and a label, and yeah, it's great. It'll go out there and it'll sell for a few $100s." And that's not the case at all. Sorry for the bad pun.
Yeah, I think we are in an era of slab cards, but we're just in as much of an era of autograph cards that are raw. I think we're in an era of scarcity, scarce cards. We're in an era of demanding cards for like good performances. It's very much hand in hand with fantasy football. Would you agree, Brandon?
Definitely. It, but I mean that is the volatility of the hobby as well. But like when I go on eBay again as a newer entrant into the hobby in terms of the modern day, I don't go on there thinking, oh gosh, I got to get an SGC 10 or I got to get a 10 no matter what. I'm not chasing the grade. I'm chasing the card. Again, if I want to PC it and send it in and have it look nice and authenticate the autograph, for example, again, yeah, if I'm going to go out of my way to get a card, it's probably going to have an autograph on it. So that's one thing. But again, just throwing it in some plastic and saying, oh, well, it's not legit if it's raw. It's not legit if it doesn't have a label on it. I think that does everybody a disservice. And I think it's just trying to separate people from their money. And I think people should be very wary about that when getting into the hobby. Just because it's not encased in plastic, it doesn't make it, doesn't drive its value down that much. Like in the here and the now, okay, sure, maybe somebody's not going to give it a look if it's not encased in plastic, but I don't think that's a good long-term strategy if you are investing in those cards, especially if they are not one of the top tiers, like a PSA or an SGC or a BGS.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's not like it's not black and white like that, you know. I think it's a continuing. The hobby is continuing to evolve. It's constantly changing. It's very fluid. You know, it's very fluid based on a ton of factors because like fantasy football is black and white. You either want to start players or sit players. You want to draft them or don't draft them in a variety of different formats. You're either, buying the over or the under. Whereas the cards take all those factors into consideration from actual performance in fantasy football and their career trajectory and all that, the team scenario, the social media likeness and all that kind of stuff, that kind of like the college name, image, likeness, thing. But then it also takes in the fact that when has this card set been released? What cards are available for this guy? How many are in the different marketplaces? What's the supply and demand like on their autograph cards? How many graded cards? There's so many different factors when you start talking about their cards that you have to take into consideration that it makes a lot of them in play. I mean, what some people like to target serial numbered cards of their second year, their third year, rare inserts of their second year, third year. They're not concerned about their rookie year. There's guys like me that are very much focused on their rookie year, their rookie cards per se. There's guys like you that really enjoy the college jerseys, the college cards, and we're seeing demand pick up for that. And it's all just a matter of, taking all these things into consideration and kind of what your end goal is. If you're investing or you're flipping, then you kind of look for these market inefficiencies. You try and think about the reaction, the behavior that other people are going to have around a certain player, why that demand would go up, and then in turn, what kind of cards would they target?
Mhm. There is a question too in the chat from Kamikaze Card Collector. Would you guys rather have a club level silver or a field level? Now I'm going to kind of switch this around a little bit. And would you have? Okay. So if I want to illustrate a point here. So if we have a card, we'll say out of 99. Okay. For you, Andy, if you could pick any number out of 99, what would you pick, or does it even matter in whatever card that may be? In your case, let's go with a Tom Brady. So if you have access, you have the funds to get a Tom Brady out of 99. What number would you pick if you could get any number, or does it even matter to you?
And this is a rookie card.
Are we
talking 2020 select, club level, or field level?
Whatever you want to do, whatever you can do, club level, whatever the card. Well, Tom Brady, whatever you like, number to 99. You're collecting them all. You're going Pokemon style. Got to get them all. So you got a 99. What number are you going for, or does it matter?
It definitely matters in the sense that 12. Yeah, I mean, I've seen it here in the comments, but for me, I would want a card either numbered 212 or having the number 12. I think that's very powerful. Very powerful.
Okay. Now, I don't disagree with you at all. If I have the opportunity and again, brought up here as well, 1 or the jersey number, great. That's a great thing to go for. But there's an added element for me. There are numbers that I have a personal connection to. 17 is a big one. 71 is another one. 1 or 7 are big for me. So whenever I'm getting into Raz or something like that, where I have the opportunity to choose a spot, and you see me pick a number, if I can, it's going to be a 7-1 or a 17 that's available. So if I see a card and it's not a jersey number, it's not a 1, but it's a 17, or if it's out of 299, if it's a 171, that holds a special spot in my heart. So if we are talking like, okay, let's say 1 wasn't available, 12 wasn't available. For me, the grail of that would then be the 17. So I think that, again, just goes to show that in terms of a collectability standpoint and a PC standpoint, there are a lot of niches that you can find. So if it is, for example, a Levante David Nebraska uniform 17 out of 99, that would be a must-have for me if I could get
it. Yeah, and it wouldn't necessarily matter what the set or the parallel was. If it had that specific number, that would bring a lot more collection value to you. It'd have a much bigger meaning to you, and you probably pay a little bit extra for that card as well, wouldn't you?
Yeah, and the other thing, though, the beauty of that is if somebody looks at a defensive player and they think, oh, well, it's not 1, and it's not his jersey number, it's just 17 or 171 or whatever. That's a stupid number, a random number, not to me. And if you want to give it to me for a few bucks, I will happily take it. So I think that helps, add that out there as well, because not nobody, but fewer people are chasing the 17 or the 171 versus the 12 or the 1. And for me, in terms of a personal collection, now if it was a flip, that's different. But from a personal collection standpoint, if I could get the 17, the 171 or what have you, I would definitely have my eye on that auction a lot longer than if it was, for example, a 47.
That's really good to know, because those are the kind of things that it's really important to take into consideration. I'm always trying to put myself in the collector's shoes when I'm looking to buy cards in auction to invest in to flip. Um, those are important factors. I think like number 13 may be like a lucky number for a lot of right number 13,
Mhm.
you know, um, stuff like that, or like I see bookends. But if I had to pick between club level silver or field level, I'm
Mhm.
gonna go with the field level. I love those swirls on that field level, the way they designed
I'm
that card.
I'm the same way with that, and I don't know if this is even going to show up. I don't know if this will even. I don't know if I can even find it, but I do have a field level Tom Brady around here somewhere from this past year's set, and I gotta say it pops. It's not even a silver, but just the swirls and the presentation is on point. I mean, I like shiny, but I also like good display of the actual card art as well. Um, Two, I think field level being the pinnacle that you can get to. I mean, there's something to be said about that as well. I actually recently sent Carter a club level Prism Tyrann Matthew, a gorgeous card. But if I could get that, it was also a die cut, and I'm not the biggest fan of die cuts. Um, but yeah, if I could get a field level. Even if it wasn't Prism, I would definitely go over that versus the club.
Yeah, that's good stuff, man. I think so. I think the field level's more scarce. It's a shorter print card. Um, I think in general, based on prior years, the field level has done better. Plus, club level that's a new parallel this year from Select, and they've gone retail, which is a whole nother kind of revelation this year for 2021. Select going retail was big. They definitely elevated the print run of that product. I don't necessarily think that's bad for it. I think it just forces people to be a little bit more intricate in deciding which of the select cards to target. And that's kind of a little bit of what I think started the base cards are dead kind of conversation in some of those videos from some of the bigger YouTube channels, because the strategy in prior years, 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, was to buy the base prism cards and the prism silver cards and get them graded and flip them, and that strategy has evolved for the most part in today's card economy. Um, and part of that is due to the dilution of base cards because of the increased print run and the increased availability of product like Select.
It does, and again, that kind of goes to where I think parallels are overdone. But I understand the concept of wanting to get them in more hands. There's more people getting into the hobby. You want more people to have the opportunity to increase their collections. Um, One complaint that I think is pretty loud. I don't necessarily know if it's the majority. I just think it's very loud. Is that some people are upset about this theoretical larger print run. A lot of people are saying that now, again, Panini's being purchased. They're going to be printing everything they can and totally diluting the market. Except, I would argue there's something standing in the way of that. And that would be the supply chain situation that we're all very familiar with. So while they are printing, no doubt, to demand, they're only going to have so many supplies. So while they may, I don't know Panini's stance on this. They may want to print more, but they quite literally don't necessarily have the product to actually do that, the actual supplies. There was a question, or there was a statement, actually, I wanted to ask you, Andy. I saw this, I think it was on Twitter the other day, and somebody was making a general statement about the hobby. It was a situation which left a bad taste in somebody's mouth, whether it was a bad transaction on eBay or something like that. And someone made the statement that it is an elitist hobby. I like to do a lot of philosophical stuff and make people think. What do you think of that statement that the hobby is elitist?
Well, there's definitely certain sectors, I think, of the hobby that do act as elitist, and they do kind of, they only post up these crazy one of ones that cost thousands and thousands of dollars. But the hobby as a whole is not elitist at all. I mean, there's tons of us out here that are just investing in, lower end cards and mid tier cards, and we're just having fun with it. And we're sharing knowledge, we're building a community. I mean, we're not all trying to 4x our money. We're not all greedy. We're not all pumping and dumping. I think, sure, there are bad apples in the hobby. Definitely. Definitely. We've seen it, whether it's people trying to steal cards at shows, or, people giving investment advice on cards that they're trying to sell, kind of thing. I know it happens, but it's not a representation of the entire hobby. You know.
Yeah, no, I feel the same way. I think I understand where that sentiment is coming from, because you definitely do have collectors with far more disposable income who kind of look down on even select or prism sets that we might consider great, or contenders, things like that. They're only going for flawless and immaculate and those one of ones and all that kind of stuff, and everything else is trash. And I think when you get that voice with a large megaphone and a spotlight, I think that may give it a larger voice and a bigger kind of cast a larger shadow than there actually is. Um, Having the opportunity to find your channel and meet the folks in the Discord, which, by the way, I mean, anybody else who's watching this who is not a part of Andy's Patreon, I'm not being paid to say this, but do join, do get in the Discord. I would definitely love to meet each and every one of you who are not already a part of it, but who want to get in on it, because it's a fantastic community. We are seeing a lot of genuine relationships being formed. I do not typically get on Twitter a lot, but when at least for my 402 Collectibles account. But if you do DM me, I'm happy to talk to you. I have met some excellent people, done some giveaways, am looking to do that again here probably in the new year. And I think there's that stuff that doesn't necessarily get all the play. The great communities out there that they're not being they're not getting a ton of spotlight. You're getting folks who are giving alleged investment advice or things of that nature, and then you've got people who will not admit that they've made a bad decision, or that they've had a bad investment. And again, that goes along with when it comes to investment advice. Yeah, there may be a player or a set or something that's coming out that somebody's saying, "Oh yeah, definitely, I would buy," but that's a very important statement. They would buy it. They would make the buy. That doesn't mean that you should. So just because a person with a ton of subscribers or a ton of followers or anything like that is saying, "Oh man, you got to run out and buy Trevor Lawrence. He's just in a bad way. Urban Meyer, this, that, and the other thing." If you say, "Well, I don't necessarily know about that," and you have some other analytics, or you have some other takes that are very important and can help you do due diligence, trust your gut. That's another great lesson that I've taken away from this. If at the end of the day you're like, this doesn't pass the smell test, there's probably a reason for that.
Yeah, man, this has been a really fun conversation. I've really enjoyed getting to know you, Brandon. Make sure you guys go follow Brandon on Twitter at 402 Collectibles. Hop in our Discord, join our membership over on patreon.com/footballcards. I appreciate the little testimonial there, Brandon. It is a pleasure to, serve all of you guys and build this community and kind of be the spokesperson for what our quest is all about. And that's it, man. I'm just trying to share the knowledge, the good and the bad. But I'm right up next to the bar with you guys, eating at the same restaurant, drinking the same drinks. And it's a fun ride that I look forward to the future, man. So I definitely think we should do some more shows like this in the future.
Absolutely. Just kind of getting back into it. I'll be coming up kind of a year back in it, coming here this spring. And I'm kind of touching little bits and pieces here for the first time, whether it's grading or, all kinds of stuff. I've, like I said, I've had that one opportunity to do like a personal break, which only went to prove that I'm never going to do that for a living. But I want to thank you for bringing me on here. Love to come back and kind of talk that newbie perspective. Also would love to come and talk collegiate prospects and kind of go into that a little bit more.
Ooh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. We got a draft right around the corner. It'll be here before you know it.
Yes, it will. I know Carter will have his thoughts, and I look forward to them, but I'd also like to chime in as well. Carter, very deep in SEC country, with LSU and Alabama and everything, and I am here in the San Diego of the Big Ten, here in or near at least Lincoln, Nebraska, but in Nebraska as a whole.
There you have it, guys. All right, guys, we're out of here. Until next time. Oh, by the way, just for everybody, I did win my fantasy matchup. Yes. Jalen Hurts came through with another rushing touchdown and a passing touchdown to none other than Greg Ward, which I'm sure helped nobody, but helped me win my fantasy not championship, but I made it to the championship round.
And real quick, I do want to say, not necessarily investment advice, but Jalen is my personal long hold. So if you are down on him, that's totally cool, because I would enjoy adding a few more cards to my collection. I'll just leave it at that.
Oof. Yes, Jalen. I can't agree with you more there, Brandon. All right, guys. Peace.